This video will show you how to multiply multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10. We're also going to be using the commutative property and the distributive property. When we think about the commutative property, I think about traffic, and I think about the commute. And when you're in a commute, you're trying to go from one place and move to another place. Maybe you'll change lanes along the way, but you're still going to get from your original place to your end place. It works the same way for addition and multiplication. If we have 4 times 5, it is the same as 5 times 4. I can move my two numbers around, and as long as I have them in that order, it doesn't make it much difference. I can also do 4 plus 5, which is the same as 5 plus 4. I'm able to move these numbers around because of the commutative property. If I have a number, or if I'm multiplying multiple pieces, such as 4 times 5 times 3, remember that you do whatever's first based on the parentheses or left to right. So if I added parentheses between the 5 and to section off 5 times 3, it means do 5 times 3 before I multiply it by 4. But remember that with the commutative property, if I'm only multiplying, it doesn't matter what order. When we look at a problem such as 4 times 30, remember what we're really saying is 4 times 3 tens. If I drew that on a place value chart, this is what it would look like, and then I could total them up to see that I have 12 tens, which is the same as 120. Now, what we can also do is we can break this down so that we have 4 times 3 times 10. And then I'm able to rearrange the numbers. For a number like 4 times 30, that's not going to be as important, but when we get into larger numbers, that is going to make a difference. Keeping that in mind, try to solve this problem on your own. 40 times 30. Remember, you can break down the numbers to manipulate them to make it easier. One way that I like to solve this is, remember, think of 40 times 30 as 4 tens times 3 tens. Then you're able to break it down to 4 times 10 times 3 times 10. Okay? And using the commutative property, we can rearrange those numbers so that we have 4 times 3 times 10 times 10. And I added in the parentheses because in my head, I'm going to solve 4 times 3 first to get 12, and I know that 10 times 10 is 100, and then I can do 12 times 100, which gives me 1,200, or 12 hundreds. Okay? What we're doing is we're breaking it down so you have a mental math strategy. You're not always going to use this, but sometimes it will help, especially as we get into distributive property with our area model. And let's use that area model to solve this problem. Remember, the first step is going to be draw out your large rectangle. I have 3 numbers here, so I'm going to have 3 different sections. Then I'm going to multiply each of those and break it down a little bit. I have 400, so I'm going to have 400. I have 5 tens, so I'm going to have 50. And I have 1 1, and so I will have 1. And then I can do 8 times 400, which 4 times 8 is 32, giving me 3,200. I can do 8 times 50. 8 times 5 is 40, so I have 40 tens, which is 400. And 8 times 1, which is 8. And then I can add all of those together where I have a final product of 3,608. Remember, 3,608, not 3,608, because that would be suggesting a decimal. Okay? This is also the distributive property. Okay? Looking at that last example for the distributive property, we start with our 8 and we're multiplying it by each number inside of this. So we have 8 times 400. Then we have 8 times 5 tens, or 50. Then we have 8 times 5 ones. Okay? And this is what it would look like. 8 times 400 plus 8 times 50 plus 8 times 1. And again, it seems a little bit silly at the beginning, but it will make more sense as you move on to more complex math ideas. Okay? Try solving this one on your own using the area model. 451 times 80. Remember, this is 8 tens, so you're going to have it set up a little bit differently. When I solve this, I have 1 row and 3 columns, so that I have split it up. I have 4 hundreds, 5 tens, and 1 1, and I put my 80 here and then multiplied straight across and then added them together. Now you could do this a little bit differently where you have two rows. You have one row for your tens and one row for your ones. But in this case, since we have 0 ones, it would be taking up additional space and we can take that shortcut.